So it is 2022 and you are trying to decide whether or not you want to refinish your basement. It's a good thing you stopped by this video today, my friend. What's up, everybody? My name is Clint. Welcome to the Tool Review Zone channel. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about the basement remodel that I just did on my own home. I'm extending out the studio a little bit, got a little bit of an entertainment area. Let me show you some of the old pics and then what it is now.
Oh man, this basement was an absolute freaking nightmare. I had stuff everywhere. I stored everything down there and nothing was organized. I had my studio that I work in down here, but that was it. Everything else was just chaos and I knew I needed to redo it. I wanted a play area for the kids. I wanted a play area for myself. Yep, it's done. Now, the reason why you're here on this video is you're probably looking to do something like this to your basement. And we're going to talk about what I went through. Is it worth it? The money that I spent in 2022, the tools that you absolutely should have to do this, and how to save a little bit of money while redoing your basement. So if this video helps at all, please don't forget to smash that like button. Let's get it going.
So mind you, there's no furniture in here yet, so there's a little bit of an echo. I apologize. But we're going to talk about the cost of lighting, the flooring, the paint, the molding, the doors, the wood, everything. All right, time frame. I believe I started this late January and it is now April 7th. So why did it take so long? Well, number one, I sort of did it by myself. I only hired two contractors. One was HVAC, one was electrical. I don't like doing those things myself, so I brought in a professional to do it. And number two, everybody's busy right now, believe it or not. People are spending money left and right. So the electrical contractors and the HVAC contractors, I sort of had to wait on a little bit to come down and do their thing. All right, let's get down to numbers. Number one, wood. I had to frame out this basement. That's right, I had to buy wood, and that's a scary thing because wood is very expensive. Right now, I think it's going for like $10 for one 2x4. That sucks. But when I decided to do this basement and bought the 2x4s, they actually dropped to around $450 a 2x4, which in my opinion is still way expensive, but much cheaper than $10 a 2x4, and it cost me for the woodage. So obviously the next step is electrical and the HVAC. Let me show you. Now, of course, I wanted that sweet recessed lighting. So I'm doing sort of a bar area here, wanted two separate lights for that. I put it on a dimmage. Well, I didn't, the electrician did. Also put these ones on a dimmage. And of course, for the entertainment area, I put that on a dimmage. I like to be scared when I watch my movies. And of course, these ones right here on the other side of the room, I also put on a dimmage. Now, of course, I was not shy when it came to adding outlets. I got outlets everywhere. I got outlets there. I got outlets there. I got outlets there and there. And of course, right there. I got an outlet right there. I'm obsessed with freaking outlets. Matter of fact, I would have turned this entire basement into one giant outlet if I could, but the electrician advised against that. But when it came to all of the parts, all of the install, all of the electrical work, well, that price came to... Now, I gotta tell you, that's a damn good price because not only did it include all of the electrical wiring that was ran, it includes all of the covers, it includes the recessed lighting, it included everything. This guy is freaking awesome. He did great work and I couldn't thank him enough for the price that he gave. Yes, he's a licensed electrician. All right, so next step was the HVAC. Now, there were a couple of registers that I had done drop from the ceiling into the walls that I built down right there. That way, it keeps that heat low, and then it rises instead of just sort of doing this thing. I done drop one right in here, blowing in that way to the future bathroom. I'm not gonna show you that because, well, it's scary in there right now. Unfortunately, I did have to keep this one right here because this wall was already completed when I built my studio. So that one's still in the ceiling, but I brought it out a little bit, positioned it in the middle. And then this one was all the way up against that, brought it out right here and put it in the middle. Now the price for the HVAC, well, it's right here. By the way, that price included moving all the registers, adding new ductwork in some areas, the actual register covers or the vents, and well, that's it. So the next step, obviously, is drywall. We got to cover all that crapo up, right? This is where I was a bit surprised. For the entire basement to be finished in drywall, only ran me about $300. Now, that was for the drywall. The mud also ran me, along as with the tape and all the other accessories that I needed, not including tools, still not bad to finish all of this drywall. However, I will tell you that I have done heard the drywall prices and the compound, the mud, that's going up like 30% this month in April. So that sucks. So timeline so far as it goes with getting the electrical, the drywall up, all the sanding and the mud, you know, the HVAC, you're looking around 2 months. Yes, that was by myself, but again, I couldn't do the ceilings myself. I have no friends, so I had to go out and buy a special tool, which you're probably going to want to as well if you don't have any friends like me. That right there is a drywall lift. I was able to put my drywall up, lift it up to the ceiling, get it nice and tight, butt it against those studs, and then screw it in. I didn't need any friends, which is good because I don't have any friends. However, that was pretty good. That tool right there, I bought it at Menards. It only ran me, well, around $200. So obviously the next thing is paint, and not only just the wall paint, but the ceiling paint. We went with, well, just a basic satin white. This is where I was a bit surprised. It was the price of freaking paint. So your basic, you know, satin white paint for ceilings, it cost me. I live in a basic house that has about a 700 square foot room that I finished. Yes, this entire basement, which I'm sure I'll get comments in the comment section. Well, how big is the basement? It's 700 square footage. So if you didn't watch the whole video, you done missed this part right here. Now, of course, I still got to do the bathroom. That doesn't include that. That also does not include my messy office that I had done last year. All in all, you're looking at about 1,100 square feet for the entire basement. But the finished work that I did the last few months, I'm looking at around 700, 750 feet. Now, even though the ceiling paint cost me that much, well, God forbid you add a little bit of color. So the wall paint is called a cotton white. We wanted something pretty light down here because we don't have that many windows. Now, we had bought paint from the Home Depot, the Deeps, for bare paint with the primer in it, your basic stuff. It wasn't the marquee stuff. It was just your basic bare with primer paint for a 5-gallon bucket, which covered this entire area. It cost me $200. I do want to let you know though that I sprayed this. I went out and bought a $400 Graco paint sprayer. You don't have to do that. If you roll it, well, it's going to cost you a couple dollars for those paint materials. But other than that, all right, so once the drywall was up, the HVAC was done, the electrical was done, everything was done other than the molding. I needed to do molding. Now, I didn't do crown molding. I just did base molding. That is where I was shooken to my core. I couldn't believe how much the freaking base molding was. For one 16-foot base molding, cost me $34. Not to mention I'd done put quarter round around all that base molding. Had to put some special molding around the steps right here. Just basically went around the entire floorage of the floor. This is how much the base molding had done cost me. Then of course I had to put new treads on the stairs. I done built myself a landing right here. Plywood is freaking insane. One piece of birch plywood, that veneer stuff, $80? The stair tread actually wasn't that bad. You're looking about $11 a piece, but that's probably gonna go up too. However, what's really gonna hurt, well, it already did hurt because I already bought them, and I done bought them from Lowe's, the railings. I needed two 10-foot sections of railing, and what I decided to go with was the stainless bullet cable style railings. For two of those railings, look at it, $1,500. My heart, oh damn. But what about the floorage? This is what the name of the floorage is called. Now I had got about 850 feet because of different cuts, and of course I'm gonna screw something up when I laid it. The cost of this floorage, which isn't even the premium stuff, cost me. And even though I love the floorage, it's a lot of money for that floorage. Now, of course, you don't have to go with the expensive bullet stainless steel railing that I'm going to install here in a bit. You don't have to go with, you know, the flooring like I did. You can go carpet, which is going to cost you a lot less. Plus, it'll help take out some of that echo, well, when it's empty like this. However, we got the furniture coming and all kind of stuff coming, and it'll really help reduce that echoage. So the total cost for me to finish this base mold all by myself with no friends other than the HVAC and the electrician cost me a total of, and before I get to the point of whether or not I think it's worth it in 2022 to do this or not, well, let me talk about a couple of the stores that I use. And I can assure you this is not a paid promotion. They don't even know I'm making this video, and quite frankly, I think they all kind of suck. Number one, Lowe's. I will tell you about Lowe's. The molding, I bought my molding at Lowe's. I couldn't find a lot of it at the Home Depot, which is kind of a bummer. You would think that the Home Depot would have a lot more, but Lowe's is actually more like homeowner friendly. And I was able to find most of my molding that I needed at Lowe's. I only bought one thing from Menards. That was the drywall lift. That was it. Everything else, the paint, the wood, the drywall, the mud, that was from Home Depot. So another big question is, well, what about the tools? How much money did you spend on the tools? Well, let's talk about this. You see, this is a power tool channel, and I already had all the tools except for the gray coat sprayer. That cost me around $400, and a couple other things, odds and ends that I didn't have that I needed for this. However, if you don't have any tools at all, what do you need to refinish this basement? Listen, I'm gonna tell you, you don't need all the fanciest, most costly tools on the planet. We're gonna go with basic stuff. If you've never owned a tool before, I'm gonna tell you a list that I think you should have if you're doing this basement. Number one, I definitely recommend a miter saw. You need to make sure that when you're putting those studs up, you're framing those walls, you're definitely gonna have to have some good cuts on those 2x4s. So I would definitely say a miter saw. You can get a cheap 7 1/4. I'll leave one in the link in the description below. You can use to make those cuts. So definitely miter saw, it's a must, you have to have it. Number two, what about a table saw? Nah, I barely use my table saw. A couple times, yeah. But if I would say anything, get a cheap circular saw, which you will use. Just throw on a Diablo blade, and that's gonna turn that cheap saw into a half-decent saw. You're gonna need a half-decent impact driver. When I say half-decent, I don't mean top of the line. I just mean something that's not very cheap, something that you're gonna find on Amazon. It's going to be reliable, so you can use tap cons. You wanna put tap cons into those studs, or I use the Ram set, you could do that, but you're definitely gonna need to use tap cons, so get out and get yourself a half-decent impact driver. Believe it or not, a utility knife is going to be your most used tool. So I would say Milwaukee Fastback. I'll leave a link in the description for just about everything I'm talking about today. You can check those out. So definitely a utility knife. Now, another tool that I would strongly suggest, and I use this a ton, believe it or not, is a multi-tool or an oscillating tool. They really come in handy in those tight areas, and maybe you messed up a cut, or you had to move something or cut something out or notch something. Invaluable. So definitely check one of those out. One more set of tools that I think you're absolutely going to need. And I'm gonna leave a link in the description below for some half-decent price for half-decent tools. It comes to nailers. You definitely don't wanna be sitting there with a hammer and nails, pounding nails into your studs when you're building your walls. You're gonna throw stuff off. You definitely want a framing nailer. You want some pin nailers or brad nailers. You know, I like brad nailers, finish nailers. I'm gonna leave you some in the links below. They're very cheap, very affordable. And you definitely want to buy those. You definitely want to use those because they're going to take your project to the next level. If you're sitting there with a hammer and nail, not only is it going to be so much more time consuming, it's also going to not look as good. Now, there were a couple other odd and end tools that I had to use. I had to use a grinder to grind out some concrete when I was setting the molding and the pillars and the flooring because, well, the concrete was on level. But I wouldn't buy that unless, you know, you actually need those tools. Run into the problem, and if you need to go get the tool for it, then do it. But just don't go out and buy the tools just in case. And that was really about it. I mean, other than some drill bits, some oscillating tool blades, it's not that much. You don't need that much when it comes to the toolage to do this. Don't let other people fool you. If you have some sort of skill and you can use a miter saw or, you know, a circular saw like we talked about, that is going to help you immensely and get like 95% of the cuts that you need for all of your molding and everything else. Let me say one other thing before we go. Definitely shop around. Now, I'm gonna tell you, when I went to Home Depot to buy the studs, you know, the 2x4s for this, they were asking that day, they just went up in price to $7. Lowe's had them for $4.50 per stud. I went to the Home Depot, I said, price match this, and they price matched Lowe's numbers. So make sure you shop around. Don't just go to one store and look for one thing and that's it, because you're gonna pay more money that way. Look around at a couple different stores, see what they're offering price-wise, and see if the other ones will compete. And if they don't, go to that other store. Even if you have to drive a little bit more, it's gonna save you money.
Oh, and FYI, I had to add 3 doors. I already had one, but 3 more doors cost me like $330.
But now it comes down to the point of, would I build this basement today in April 2022? Well, the answer is yeah. Well, I did it. You know, unfortunately, I sort of got stuck where the prices were going a little bit lower, and then mid-project, everything kind of went through the roof. That said, right now, today, if I wouldn't have started this a few months ago, looking at the prices going up, this is something that I can say, all right, I'll hold off a little bit and hopefully these prices will come back down because everything is just skyrocketing right now. So unless you have that budget for it, I'd say hold off because you don't want to lose money on your project. I mean, even though a finished basement doesn't add 100% value to your house, it's going to help a little bit, trust me. So long story short, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, yeah, because everything was coming down. Now everything's starting to go back up again, and I would have been like, just wait for the prices to fall, hit rock bottom again. But of course, that is up to you. Let me know what you think. Does this video help you at all? Are you planning on doing a basement remodel? And, you know, are you gonna move forward with it? I love hearing that type of feedback, you know, what other people are doing around the nations. Listen, I just don't want you to be upset. You come back and say, well, you paid this much for a 2x4 and now they're 12 bucks. Things are changing. Prices are going nuts. The whole system is freaking crazy. I'm just letting you know, within 2022, this is what it cost me. And hopefully you can find some good deals, go to some warehouses, get some good prices on wood and such. And you know, I'm curious to know what you're going to do. It's very interesting to hear your feedback. Also, if you could smash that like button, appreciate it. I always appreciate you stopping by. And with that, we'll be back with more videos soon.